Have you ever wondered why some people look different, feel different, or just aren't the same after getting the COVID-19 vaccine? Maybe you've noticed it in yourself or seen it in friends and family, small changes that have crept up slowly and that no one can really explain. If you're honest, you may have stood in front of the mirror and asked yourself, is this really me? Not because of normal aging, but because of something else, something more subtle that you can't quite put your finger on. It's a feeling that many people over 60 are familiar with, but few dare to talk about. It's been 5 years since the first COVID-19 vaccinations, and stories are slowly coming to light that are on many people's minds but are often overlooked by the mainstream media. Stories of people over 60 who are suddenly facing health challenges they never could have imagined. The truth is that while society is trying to put the pandemic years behind it, many seniors are still living with the aftermath, not from COVID itself, but from something else, from changes that only became apparent months or even years after the vaccinations, from problems that doctors often dismiss as normal signs of aging, but which are anything but normal for those affected. Today, I want to talk to you about 5 consequences that have particularly affected seniors, not to scare you, but to help you better understand and protect your own health. These are stories of real people, your neighbors, maybe even yourself. Stories that are important because they show that you are not alone in what you may be going through. The difficult thing about these changes is that they often come on so slowly, so subtly, that at first you attribute them to the natural aging process. But when you listen more closely, when you recognize the patterns, a picture emerges that gives pause for thought and is worth discussing. The 5th episode we'll talk about is perhaps the most surprising of all, something that almost no one would have expected, and yet so many older people silently endure without knowing that others feel the same way. Stay tuned until the end, because what you learn today could help you listen to your body better and ask the right questions the next time you see your doctor. The first episode, which concerns many seniors, is something doctors call post-vaccine fatigue, but which means much more to those affected than just being tired. Consider Margaret, a 72-year-old woman who used to get up at 6 every morning before the vaccine, tend her garden, and still have energy for long walks in the afternoon. Margaret had always been proud of her vitality. "I'm fitter than some 50-year-olds," she used to say, and it was true. She could work for hours without getting tired, was the first to sign up for trips or activities, and her friends admired her energy. Her daughter often joked that Margaret outwalked her on hikes, even though she was 30 years younger. But about 3 months after her second vaccination, something began to change. It wasn't that Margaret suddenly became ill or had dramatic symptoms. It was more subtle, more insidious. She woke up in the morning feeling as if she hadn't slept all night, even though she had been in bed for 8 hours. The fatigue was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It wasn't the healthy tiredness after a busy day or the natural exhaustion of old age. It was a deep, pervasive exhaustion that seemed to sit in her bones. It was as if her body was struggling with an invisible weight that was pulling her down. "I don't understand it," Margaret told her daughter. "I sleep enough, I eat healthily, I still exercise, but I feel like a car running out of fuel." Her daughter was worried and urged her to see a doctor, but all the tests came back normal. "It's normal for your age," the doctor said, but Margaret knew that wasn't true. The garden that had once been her greatest joy became a challenge. Where she used to be able to work for hours, she now only managed 30 minutes before exhaustion forced her to sit down. Her beloved walks became shorter and less frequent. Friends invited her out less often because she had to cancel so much. "It's as if someone has replaced my batteries," Margaret told her sister. "The new ones only last half as long as the old ones." The worst thing was not just the physical exhaustion, but also the feeling that she was losing her identity as an energetic, active person. What is particularly worrying is that this fatigue seems to occur more frequently and more intensely in people over 60 than in younger people. It is as if the more mature immune system reacts differently to the vaccine, more intensely, and this intensity leaves traces that do not disappear so quickly. The second consequence is something that many describe as brain fog, but which is particularly disturbing for seniors because it touches on their greatest fear, the fear of mental decline. Consider Heinrich, a 68-year-old retired accountant who had been proud of his sharp memory and clear thinking all his life. Heinrich was the man who remembered every birthday, could do complex calculations in his head, and always kept track of all the cards when playing cards with friends. His wife often joked that his brain worked like a computer, precise, reliable, never forgetful. His grandchildren came to him when they needed help with their math homework because Grandpa Heinrich could do everything in his head. But in the months after his vaccination, Heinrich began to forget things. Not dramatically, not in a way that was immediately noticeable, but enough to worry him. He would stand in the kitchen and not be able to remember why he was there. He would read an article in the newspaper and have to read it twice to understand what it was about. Names of people he had known for years were suddenly no longer so easy to remember. "It's as if there's a veil over my mind," Heinrich described it to his wife. "I know the information is there, but I can't access it properly. It's like someone has turned down the radio and I have to strain to hear what's playing."
The tricky thing about this brain fog is that it often comes in waves. Sometimes Heinrich is completely clear and sharp, just like he used to be. Then there are days when it feels like he's thinking through cotton wool. This unpredictability makes it even more unsettling because he never knows when it will hit him. Ein particularly frightening moment was when Heinrich suddenly forgot how to pay with his debit card while shopping, something he had done thousands of times before. He stood at the checkout, staring at the machine, and simply couldn't remember what to do. The cashier had to help him, and Heinrich felt like a little kid going shopping for the first time. His wife also noticed changes. Heinrich took longer to make decisions, even simple ones like, "What would you like for dinner?" He who used to always have an answer ready would sit there and ponder as if it were the most difficult question in the world. What frightened Heinrich most was the worry that others might think he was developing dementia. But this brain fog was different. It came and went, and in his clear moments he was the same sharp thinker he always had been. It was as if his brain was sometimes running at half speed, but it was definitely still the same brain. The third symptom is perhaps the most subtle, but for many seniors it is the most distressing: changes in the cardiovascular system that manifest as unexplained shortness of breath and irregular heartbeat. Consider Werner, a 74-year-old man who used to climb the 3 flights of stairs to his apartment with ease and regularly went on hikes lasting several hours. Werner had always been proud of his strong heart. During his regular checkups, his cardiologist always praised his heart health. "You have the heart of a 50-year-old, the doctor had said just 6 months before the vaccination. Werner felt strong, fit, and ready for many more active years. He was even in a hiking club and could easily manage the most demanding tours, but then small changes began. At first, it was just occasional heart palpitations, which Werner attributed to coffee or excitement. Then he noticed that he was getting out of breath more quickly than before when climbing stairs. It wasn't dramatic, but it was noticeable. He had to take more frequent breaks, stop more often and catch his breath. It's strange," Werner told his son. "My legs are still strong. I don't feel weak, but my heart is racing as if I've run a marathon, even though I've only climbed 2 flights of stairs." This worried him, because he knew that his heart had been able to cope with much more in the past. The first truly frightening episode came when Werner was out walking with his wife, a route he had taken hundreds of times before. Suddenly, his heart began to race wildly for no apparent reason. It felt as if it were about to jump out of his chest. He had to sit down on a bench and wait for it to calm down. His wife was so frightened that she wanted to call an ambulance. At his next checkup with the cardiologist, the readings weren't alarming, but they were different than before. His blood pressure was slightly higher, his resting heart rate was a little faster, and the ECG showed small irregularities that hadn't been there before. "It could be related to age," said the doctor, but Werner felt that the changes had come on too suddenly. What particularly worried Werner were the nighttime heart arrhythmias. He sometimes woke up because his heart was beating irregularly, or suddenly started racing for no apparent reason. It was as if his heart sometimes forgot how to beat steadily. These nighttime episodes frightened him because he didn't know if he would wake up one night. These cardiovascular changes are particularly worrying in seniors because the cardiovascular system becomes more vulnerable with age. When additional stressors are added, the system can become unbalanced more quickly. Werner often wonders if his heart is trying to tell him something, if it is a warning sign that he should take seriously. The fourth consequence affects the immune system itself and manifests as a kind of overreactivity that many seniors experience as more frequent colds, strange skin reactions, or a general susceptibility to infections. Consider Elfriede, a 69-year-old woman who used to be proud of the fact that she never gets sick. Elfriede had an immune system like a rock. While her friends regularly battled colds in winter, she remained healthy. When her grandchildren came to visit with sniffles, she never caught anything. "I have good genes," she used to say, and her family admired her robust health. Her family doctor joked that Elfriede came to the office so rarely that she could almost forget her medical records. But in the months after the vaccination, that began to change. Elfriede started catching colds more often, but they were strange colds, not the typical ones that disappear after a few days, but persistent, protracted infections that lasted for weeks. Her body seemed to be fighting, but not as efficiently as it used to. "It's as if my body doesn't know how to defend itself anymore," she told her sister. "A cold used to be over in 3 days. Now the symptoms drag on for weeks." She had recurring sore throats that came and went, a stuffy nose that never completely cleared up, and fatigue that came with the cold and remained even after the other symptoms subsided. Then the skin problems began. Elfriede developed a rash on her arm that came and went without any apparent trigger. Sometimes her skin was redder and more sensitive than usual, as if it were reacting to something that wasn't there. She tried various creams and ointments, but nothing really helped. The rash disappeared on its own and then returned weeks later. It's as if my body is confused, she described it to her family doctor, as if it's fighting enemies that don't even exist. What particularly worried her was that she sometimes felt sick without actually being ill, a general feeling of malaise, as if her body was constantly on guard.
Her lymph nodes swelled more frequently. She had mild fevers more often for no apparent reason, and her joints were sometimes stiffer in the morning than they used to be. It was as if her body had an internal inflammation that never completely went away. What is particularly worrying for people like Elfriede is that the immune system becomes more sensitive with age anyway. When it is additionally stimulated or confused, this can lead to chronic hyperactivity, which is exhausting. I am very happy that you are watching this video, and if you find this information valuable, please leave a comment below with the number 5 so that I can see that you are here. We read all comments without exception. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I encourage you to do so and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Your support helps us continue to address important topics that are often overlooked. The 5th and perhaps most surprising episode concerns something that is rarely talked about: changes in emotional and mental state that many seniors describe as a kind of emotional numbness or unexplained mood swings. Think of Günther, a 71-year-old man who had been known all his life for his even-tempered, optimistic nature. Günther was the man who always had a smile on his face, who encouraged others when they were down, and who maintained a positive attitude even in difficult times. His family and friends often turned to him when they needed advice or comfort, because he had the rare gift of finding something hopeful in every situation. "That is our ray of sunshine," his daughter often said about him. Günther had been through difficult times: the death of his parents, financial difficulties in his younger years, his wife's health problems, but he had always found a way to stay positive. People around him often said they didn't know how he did it, but his energy was contagious. But about 4 months after his vaccination, people around Günther began to notice that something was different. It wasn't that he became depressed or had dramatic mood swings. It was more subtle, as if the color had drained from his personality. He still smiled, but the smile no longer reached his eyes. He still talked to people, but his words no longer had the warm energy they used to radiate. "I feel like I'm looking at my life through a glass wall," Günther described it to his wife. "I see everything, I understand everything, but I can't really feel it. It's like there's a layer between me and my emotions." His wife was alarmed because she suddenly felt like the man she had known for 40-50 years was a stranger. A particularly frightening moment came when his first great-grandchild was born. In the past, Günther would have been bursting with joy, had tears in his eyes, and raved about the baby for hours, but when he held the little creature in his arms, he felt only a mild satisfaction. He knew he should be happy. He understood intellectually that this was a wonderful moment, but the emotional connection was muted. What was particularly disturbing was that Günther was aware of this change but couldn't control it. It wasn't that he had decided to be less emotional. It was as if someone had turned down the volume of his feelings without asking him. These emotional changes are particularly difficult for seniors because they often fear that it could be a sign of mental decline. What connects all 5 of these episodes is that they come on gradually and are often not immediately recognized as related. Many people who experience them initially think it is normal aging, or they worry that they are imagining the changes. But when you recognize the patterns, when you hear the stories of people like Margret, Heinrich, Werner, Elfriede, and Günther, it becomes clear that there could be more to it. The particularly difficult thing about these changes is their unpredictability. One day can be completely normal, and the next day these puzzling symptoms reappear. This makes it stressful not only for those affected, but also difficult for doctors to diagnose. When someone like Heinrich goes to the doctor on a good day, he seems completely normal and sharp. Many sufferers also report that they feel misunderstood by their own families. "You look fine," they often hear, or "you're imagining things." But these people know exactly that something is different. They know their own bodies, their own thoughts, and their own emotions better than anyone else. The important thing is that you know. If you notice changes in yourself that don't seem to fit with your normal aging process, you have the right to ask questions. You have the right to know if what you are experiencing is related to others, if there are explanations, if there is help available. Many doctors are still learning and understanding what these long-term effects could mean. It is a new field, and it will take time to understand all the connections, but that does not mean that your experiences are not real or important. If you recognize yourself in one or more of these stories, the most important thing is to listen to your body, keep a diary of your symptoms, talk to your doctor about them, and don't be afraid to seek a second opinion if you feel that your concerns are not being taken seriously. It's also important to know that you're not alone. Many people experience similar changes, and it's perfectly valid to be concerned or to seek answers. Your health is important, and you have the right to want to understand what's going on in your body. Medicine is constantly evolving, and what is unexplained today may be better understood tomorrow. Until then, it's important to take good care of yourself, listen to your body, and don't be afraid to seek help if you need it. Remember, you know your body better than anyone else. If something feels different, if you notice changes that concern you, then that's an important signal. Listen to it, and don't let yourself be discouraged from seeking answers. Thank you for joining us today and taking the time to listen to these important stories. If you have had similar experiences or know someone who is going through something similar, please share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes it helps to know that other people are walking a similar path. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more content addressing important health issues that are often overlooked. Your health and well-being are important, and you deserve to be informed and heard. Until the next video, take good care of yourself, listen to your body, and never forget that your experiences and concerns are important and valid.